Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Andy Zoll and Anna Wells. We're the editors of Manufacturing.net, Food Manufacturing and Industrial Distribution, and we each have more than 20 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 biggest stories in manufacturing and discuss the implications they have on the industry moving forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Andy, David, or Anna at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You could also reach producer Eric at IN.com with "You do a great job producing the podcast, Eric," in the subject line. We're also live every Thursday at 2 p.m., so subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine so you can get a notification and join us whenever we go live. Andy, thank you for joining us this week. How you doing?
Always a pleasure. How are you guys?
Doing great, man. It's nice to be in here. Like we're transitioning to the like cold fall season where the it becomes a nice warm respite in the studio. And it's a good time right now. It's a good time. Anna, how are you doing?
Yeah, the office is cold.
It is. It's just like a constant reminder of like the yearly crush. Another year gone on my frail body. Just like I can't be by any windows anymore. Just
I think I have osteoporosis.
I know, I need layers. I tried. I struggled to close my hand this weekend, and my brother's like, "Oh, you know what that is?" I'm like, leave me alone. I just banged it on something. Calm down. Well, before we get into our first story this week, we want to say, Jeff, have a good time on that vacation. Hope you come back recharged. Now, we've got a word from our new sponsor, Workday. This week's episode is brought to you by Workday. 96% of manufacturers are increasing AI investments, mostly focusing on improving factory floor operations. The next phase of AI aims to tackle a new set of relevant challenges: ongoing labor shortages, regulatory changes, and economic uncertainty. This new ebook, Rethinking AI in Manufacturing, teaches you how to transform day-to-day processes across your organization with AI to benefit the workforce and your stakeholders. There is a link to download this ebook in the live chat. You can also download it using the link in the body copy. All right, our first story this week. Study helps robots understand when to take over and when to hand off to a human. Sometimes, when you work as a team, things go great. Other times, well, let's just say they're less efficient. But humans can often tell when something isn't working. What's going to happen when we're working with a robot counterpart and things just aren't working out? Researchers from Osaka Metropolitan University sought out to understand why this, quote, cooperative advantage manifests in some cases, but not in others. They conducted a task where participants used a robotic arm to transport a rod while keeping it horizontal. The participants were told that the task would stop if the rod's tilt exceeded a certain threshold. They compared performance between groups of 2 people working together and people performing the task alone. They found that pairs that take this leader-follower role performed better than those with no role differentiation. The group hopes that their work will lead to improving outcomes in human-robot settings. Assistant Professor Asuka Takai, who led this group, said, quote, "This discovery is expected to be applied to collaborative design between humans and robots. A human needs to know when to take on a task itself or hand it over to a human, which may require understanding subtle differences in how each can contribute to the task." Anna, this story made me realize that we're still, at the base or foundational level of true human-robot collaborative interaction in the workplace.
Definitely. First of all, I love studies that try to dissect these kind of nebulous workplace scenarios, like why do some groups work effectively and some do not?
Yeah.
The confirmation of the leader-follower method I thought was interesting. It almost speaks to like in an age where middle management is kind of getting crushed. Like maybe there is a place for someone to be in charge versus this horizontal structure and then no one gets it right. I don't know.
I think that makes sense.
That's maybe a conversation for another day. But, I think it was an interesting study on how robotics can be adapted to respond to real world scenarios with efficiency in mind. But the thing that I always think of in these situations is I don't necessarily think training the robots is the easy part, but I do think it's probably easier than the training the humans part.
Yeah.
And no one's really talking about the training the humans part.
Yeah.
I actually looked this up online to see if there were any scientific papers around training people specifically to work with cobots.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because the scientific community at large believes it's incumbent upon the robotics or automation company to kind of link those two together. But I would think there have to be some sort of overarching behavioral changes or, as we know, maybe trust issues that need to be ironed out so people can understand how to best work effectively with the robots. And that was interesting to me when I read this. I know that's not what the article was about, but that's all I could think about was like, wow, there's this whole other side to this that's not really being addressed right now.
It's not being addressed. And really, what are some of the things that we hear out in the industry? It's just like, oh, well, the new generation of worker is used to having a device in their hand at all times, so it should come pretty easy. You're just like, they know how to use a phone, so they should be fine working alongside a robot?
Right, yeah.
I mean, I think that's a really good point, just in terms of like training a human how to more effectively work with these humanoid or any type of robot. Right now, all we see are when they're studying the workplace, I mean, they're typically just abusing those humanoid robots. Just like, hey, what if when we were working together in a warehouse, the human started bludgeoning the robot with a hockey stick? Would it fall over?
Oh, it just hops right back up.
Just hops right back up. And it looks like a weird sort of like maneuver from The Ring or something
just
like
a little
that.
bobcat.
No, that was a part that I took away from it also, is that a collaborative robot is still just a tool, right? It's not a collaborator. It's not a partner. It is just a tool that does very... I'm oversimplifying, but does very easy to teach tasks repetitively. And maybe because of a lack of that training with humans and how to work with robots, they make it so simple to use these tools just to make them more approachable. I mean, maybe that's part of the challenge there. Andy, one thing that also stuck out to me in this article is, hopefully some of this info never really conflicts with other safety programming. I mean, with a lot of these robotic studies, I always go to Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, and it's like, okay, a robot should never harm a human unless the human was intentionally making the bar not horizontal, and then the robot's got to put the human in his place so that way it can complete its objective.
Yeah. I had a tough time with this getting from what I think I read correctly about the study and the headline, because this mostly just seemed to confirm, and this is oversimplifying it, but it mostly just seemed to confirm that teams work more efficiently when its members have clearly defined roles, which feels obvious.
Yeah. But it also...
like, we already know this, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it also, like, with the wrinkle of robotics in there as well.
For sure.
The robot needs to know its role as well.
Correct. And that's the heavy lift here, I guess, is my point, is that these were people getting these robotic arms to do this, but eventually you're going to need to get the robotic arm themselves too. And I know that this may help inform that process. And I don't want to downplay this because I hate being that guy who's like, this study was obvious. Like, all knowledge is worth pursuing. And sometimes even if you think something's right, it's worth confirming or quantifying or whatever. But I had some trouble getting from point A to point B on this.
Just, everyone should know that. But I think I feel like we're also entering a new timeline where things that should be common sense are like suddenly becoming less and less so. We're just like, it should work better if we all understand our role in this.
And make sure it knows what to do and when to do it, which,
And, I'll take a little headline shade on this one. But I'm also going to
not my intention here.
No, I'll
that's
also
all.
cast a little reader shade on this one because I think some readers saw study helps robots understand when to take over. And then they're like, oh my God, they're going to teach them how to take over. And like some of the comments and people emailing, I was like, You didn't even read the second half of the headline? And when to hand off to a human. It was just like, why would you tell us how robots should take over? And also, I will say that when searching for a photo, I was looking for a photo of a robot in a futuristic setting in a factory. And some people took issue with the specific, let's say, make and model of the robot. And, there were some odd concerns that I never saw coming. Talk about, never seeing coming. Complaints that they had as to, let's just say, the body type when it comes to the robot. I encourage you to check it out. Let me know where you land on the issue, because some people thought that that robot was too tantalizing. And I was just like, that's what your takeaway was?
They kind of look like they're just hanging out at work.
They are just hanging out at work. But yeah, I guess I didn't look at the full picture. What's really going on there?
Tell them to get their minds out of the gutter.
I don't know. Sometimes you just can't. Sometimes.
And also read the article.
Yeah.
Tell them to read the article and get your minds out of the gutter.
Read or the whole headline.
Yeah.
We're getting to this weird part of society where you don't even get through the whole headline and you're already outraged.
Try to get the gist. How about that?
We'll give you more bullets. All right. Our next most popular story. Forklift companies charged with dodging tariffs, defrauding United States out of $1 million. 2 Colorado companies and some of their executives have been charged by a federal grand jury with conspiring to avoid paying tariffs on forklifts that were imported from China into the United States. So, according to the court documents, the companies and the employees stand accused of doing business. Selling forklifts to federal agencies as products that were made in America. The companies in question are Octane Forklifts and what's the other one? Endless Sales, which does business as Discount Forklift. Individuals mentioned in the indictment include current executives Brian Firkins and Jeffrey Blasdell. Also, another former executive, J.R. Anchek, was named in the documents as well. The DOJ says the companies and executives allegedly collaborated with an unnamed Chinese company and a national to make fake invoices that undervalued the forklift's cost. By doing so, the department estimates that those involved defrauded the U.S. government of more than $1 million in applicable fees, duties, and tariffs. The grand jury charged each company and person with conspiring to commit wire fraud. The individual counts carry a max sentence of 20 years in prison and a fine up to $250,000. The corporations could each get hit with $500,000 in fines. The companies and executives also face charges of conspiring to enter goods into the U.S. via fraudulent or false statements, which carry 5-year prison sentences and an additional $250,000 fine. Anna, will we experience a tariff cheating era similar to the period of COVID fraud that we just seem to be wrapping up?
Well, I mean, potentially. I think it stands to reason that folks are going to say, I can't afford this. I'm going to figure out a way to get around it. Mm-hmm. Most definitely. But that was happening before tariffs, But I think you have 2 things taking place here. One, you have the dodging of the tariffs. But you also have a violation of the Buy America Act in this deception, because obviously it was federal agencies that were making these purchases. The Buy American Act requires those agencies to procure domestic materials and products, but 2 conditions must be present for that act to apply. 1, the procurement must be intended for public use within the United States. And 2, the items to be procured must be present in the United States in sufficient quantities and of satisfactory quality. Oh. So basically, I don't know about you guys, I've visited probably, 80% of the U.S. forklift brands factories, right? Yeah. Crown, Toyota, Raymond, Cat. Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to say that we have plenty of U.S.-made forklifts in sufficient quality. I mean, that's one thing we're actually quite good at is producing forklifts. The U.S. has a great footprint. There's a lot of innovation taking place here. Mm-hmm. So there's no way that they could argue that they did this for any reason outside of pure and simple, lining their pockets to make more money. Yeah. So that's, that's challenging because you could say hey, we couldn't deal with the act because we can't figure out if these are substantially made products in the United States. I know some companies will argue that. They'll say like it's too hard to decipher whether this is American made enough to comply.
Yeah.
That's usually the argument against using it. In this case, I think there's really no excuse besides they just wanted to make some more money and skim out some of that tariff cost from their overall business. It really went out of their way to do so in a very fraudulent way. Like there's just no defense here.
No, it's I mean, my first takeaway was just new rules, new fraud, right? Like and I mean, and not even new fraud, like changing faking documents, lying about costs. I mean, really, it is the original fraud.
Fraud 101.
Yeah, fraud 101. Just like, wait, so if we pay taxes on what we paid for, what if we just lied about what we paid for?
Yeah.
Wow, you seem to be onto something there, sir. My goodness. Andy, it makes me think about all these people when there's always going to be people thinking they can outsmart the system, right? And just the inherent dangers of thinking you're the smartest person in the room.
That's a lot of what I was curious about with this story, because the criminal complaint doesn't really get into it from what I was able to see. But when you first look at a story like this, you kind of assume going into it like, oh, they didn't want to pay for these new tariffs. So they're just a straight run of the mill. Oh, these were made here, so we don't have to pay whatever it is now, 10, 20%, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened. Tariffs are just a small part of this. This scheme started in 2018 under the first Trump administration, under that first round of tariffs. And it continued, it ended rather, in 2024 under the Biden administration. So this had nothing to do with the current round of tariffs. This is just, they, discount forklifts just decided that they were going to try and skirt federal contracting laws, basically. So, and like I said, there are things in the criminal complaint that were not spelled out that I assume will be spelled out as we go through this. How this company, these individuals went down this road, how much they ended up making off it, and how the government found out about it in particular. I'm curious about that specifically.
I'm sure it's going to be just a really smart way, and not that they were just falling over their own shoelaces.
Just drop the ball real hard.
Yeah, you wonder if they were labeled, like if they were branded products, because how would the
complaint talks about what, I can't remember the specific phrasing they use, but basically de-China-ing, which is just removing decals
and
cooking up a fraudulent bill of origin. I mean, it's just like really going over the top on the fraud.
Yeah,
throwing a sticker over it, man. We are
removing one sticker, putting on another one, and being like,
rebadging. Yeah, we're just rebadging. That's all.
Yep.
Not a lot of sympathy for these criminals online. Noted commenter Herp Derp 1662 says, "Hope these scumbags rot in prison." And there was a lot of similar sentiment, but some people did reiterate saying that tariffs are taxes. Kind of looking at the new rules, new fraud angle. I saw this article from the Wall Street Journal that was published back in July. And basically it starts, first came President Trump's announcements of sweeping tariffs, and then next up is the cheating. So they talk to trade lawyers that say as these tariffs skyrocketed, so too do the incentives to not pay them. And they talked about all of their clients kind of inundating them with questions about where's the line? What's a lawful loophole and what's fraud? Just like, we can come up to here and that's over. Okay, we'll just stay right here. But unlike other cases involving fraud and or safety, the whistleblowers in these cases are often your competitors. So, a lot of times when we're talking about safety issues or other internal whistleblowers, it's someone from within. So, if you are concerned about being over that line, you also have to be mindful of what kind of information is out there in the market, because, your competitors are going to point at you and just say like, we can't do it. And we know we're doing it as cheap as possible. They have to be cheating.
Yeah, they want that FEMA contract too. That's where this came from, was disaster funding, basically.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, and I guess that was talk about something that seems like it should be common sense, but I was just surprised for so many trial lawyers to just kind of come out and be like, oh yeah, nonstop. The phone's been ringing off the hook. Just like, Now, this is what we pay you for, right? I mean, that's just how I hear the conversation started.
Theoretically.
We're just talking in hypotheticals here, Anna. This is just a hypothetical situation.
All right.
All right. Our next most popular story this week. Ag equipment maker citing tariffs to shift work out of the U.S. Claas is a German manufacturer of tractors, harvesters, and other farm machinery. The company operates a factory in Omaha, Nebraska, where it builds the Lexion combine. These combines are primarily sold in Canada, which means that the steel and aluminum used to make them in Nebraska is getting hit by Canadian tariffs imposed as a response to tariffs levied by the Trump administration. So, school is out, and Claas is moving production to the 2026 Lexion 8000 to Germany. The company will continue to review pre-order data to determine its production requirements in Omaha. Luckily, the jobs in Nebraska seem safe as no layoffs are planned. The company is actually expanding sales and service operations in the state and just broke ground on a new R&D hub. Andy, as you note in the article, this is kind of what you get when you broadly impose tariffs on manufacturers that have these complex, wide-ranging global supply chains.
Yeah, this is a pretty specific set of circumstances that came into play here. And as you just mentioned, there were no job losses attached to it. But, I think I've said before, and I'm sure other people have said before, that the tariffs are something that should be maybe applied with a scalpel rather than a sledgehammer. Mm-hmm. And the reason you do that is because you can impose tariffs on, Chinese steel if you think they're, artificially undercutting the market. But if you just slap a broad tariff on Canada for some reason, then suddenly this company, who would almost certainly prefer to keep that work in Nebraska because it's much closer to its end market, they have to send it back across the ocean. And it was not disclosed in the article, and I doubt the company would say, but who knows how many jobs are going to go to Germany now rather than Omaha. So, and there's a quote from a professor in the article, and I should have had it queued up here, but what does it say? Here we go. The difficulty and folly of raising tariffs haphazardly. That's from a Creighton University economist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it is. That's the part that shocked me is you become so conditioned to jobs moving to Mexico or Canada that you're like, oh my goodness, it made more sense to just send them overseas and then ship them back over to Canada. I mean, and I feel like we keep hearing about how, we have all these very specific stories and how it's impacting these companies. But, I feel like this is like the comment section, right? Where you get one person to say something and then you understand that like 300 other people feel that way. Mm-hmm. I feel like we keep hearing these stories on a weekly, daily basis. And it's just like, yeah, we understand that, this sledgehammer approach to it isn't working. And I don't know, I feel like in everything else, we've adjusted accordingly. And it just seems like this hasn't moved as much as it could have.
Yeah. And, this is the same problem that I think a lot of the automakers are having as well, because if you look at their factory footprints and their sourcing strategy, like they're crossing those borders constantly. Mm-hmm. That's why they're so concerned about these tariffs. And I would say there's no such thing as like a settled supply chain cost, but you also don't necessarily expect to get kneecapped by your own like government policy. And I think that's what's taking place here, especially in this case in Nebraska. And we have discussed this at length on previous podcasts that you can be pro-tariff if that's what you are, that's what you believe. But you can't present it as all upside for everyone because it's not, There's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And companies have taken both positions. There's some companies out there that are saying this is really going to help us. And there's a lot of companies out there that are saying, no, it's not. Yeah. The time for this was, 60 years ago. Mm-hmm. With globalization, this doesn't make sense for us anymore. Our supply chains are too complex. And, as we've seen a few plant closures take place over the last couple of months in response to this, or purportedly in response to this, these are factories that are operating in America and employing Americans, and they're being negatively impacted. So some of these stories I think you can't take at face value. We've talked about that before too, that it's an easy scapegoat.
It's the new scapegoat, yeah.
But we do know that tariffs are to blame in some of these cases for sure. And in this case, I think it's well accepted fact that it's cheaper to operate in a rural right to work state than it is in a heavily unionized country in Europe. And as you said, ship it way across an ocean. That's not a decision that you make in a different economic environment.
No, not at all.
So you feel like, it's hard to see these companies, their hands are forced to make these decisions that are not necessarily in their best interest from a profitability standpoint, from a pricing standpoint as a customer.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing the continued fallout of that.
Well, and we've seen some niche applications go the other way. I was doing an interview this last week. They were talking about high-end American door manufacturers doing great with the tariffs, right? Because it just doesn't make any sense to import that anymore. Same thing with some textiles, stuff like that. So I do understand that there is a give and take, but in that conversation, it was just like, no, pretty universally, we've heard everybody say like, everyone's still holding or things are turning the wrong direction. But at least there are still anecdotal wins for it, I guess.
Yeah, and this was a company, I mean, there's been, I think, a lot of, and this is just anecdotal, maybe a lot of talk about tariffs kind of prompting more foreign direct investment here.
Yeah.
This was a company that was already doing that,
yeah,
and now they're being pushed back overseas. So it's, yes, there's always winners and losers, but just kind of applying this so broadly is really ramping up the number of losers.
The loser part.
Yeah. Well, so
I agree with you.
Yeah. So for me, it was how much longer is it going to hurt for a little bit, before it turns around? According to the Center for American Progress, via government labor data, employers shed 12,000 manufacturing jobs in August. For all of 2025, manufacturing employment in the United States has sunk by a total of 33,000 jobs, and that's according to the Labor Department's own figures. Most of those job losses have been among companies that make durable goods, like you said, Anna, cars, household appliances, electronics. And I'm just, I get it. We're still in that's going to hurt a little bit. But I don't know. I'm ready for it to turn around. And I know that a lot of the people that I talk to in the industry on a daily basis, it sounds like time off and layoffs have become a little bit more common for some of those operations as people continue to wait and see. And I don't know. It has become a more troubling outlook based on some of the conversations I've had. And I don't know. Was that anything where? I think we talked about it a little bit, but when you were out at PAC, it sounded like tariffs were still top of mind for everybody, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's the biggest thing that's happened in manufacturing this year. So even things like workforce issues, which are still very, very prevalent and very, very impactful in manufacturing. I think those are even being backburnered a little bit, which to the detriment of the industry, to be honest, that there's so many resources internally going towards how do we manage this situation when it's ever changing and people have these war rooms and it's like a firefighting situation daily and it's not great.
Not great. All right. Our next most popular story, Midair emergency sparks new alarm over safety of Boeing's Dreamliner. The Federation of Indian Pilots wants all Boeing 787 Dreamliners operating in the country inspected for electrical issues. According to the Associated Press, the plea comes after a report of a plane deploying an emergency power system unexpectedly while it was in the air last weekend. The device is called a ram air turbine, or RAT. It's a small propeller that acts as a backup generator. Normally, it should activate when an aircraft's engine loses power, its hydraulic systems register critically low pressure, or its electrical systems fail. This time, the rat sprung the trap moments before it landed safely in England. You heard it. Air India said, quote, all electrical and hydraulic parameters were normal, end quote, and that the aircraft landed safely, period. End of story. Let's stop talking about it. People have a reason to be concerned. In June, an Air India Boeing 787 Dreamliner crashed and killed 260 people, including 19 people that were on the ground. It was one of India's worst disasters in aviation. The president of the Federation of Indian Pilots said that he'd never heard of the RAT system being deployed even when there are no problems in the engines, hydraulics, or electrical systems, which appeared to be the case over the weekend. Andy, the head of the FIP, said, quote, "It's a serious concern that warrants a detailed inquiry." And to me, that just didn't sound like a big ask.
It certainly does not sound like a big ask. It probably is one from Boeing's perspective, but given that the litany of safety problems we've gone over and the culture issues that we've gone over within Boeing for years and years and years on this podcast and through all of our brands, it just seems like that's something maybe they shouldn't push back on too much. There was another report on this, the Federation president's comments that was in the Seattle Times. And he said that the association had heard that this latest incident was attributed to a fluctuation in the plane's bus power control unit, which that's a device that monitors and manages its electric systems. Now, what he also said in that article was that the group is, quote, quite convinced that it could be an electrical problem that also led to the earlier crash that you talked about. Voice recordings, apparently, he said, indicated that neither pilot aboard that plane had flipped off two switches that provide fuel to the engines, which caused the crash. So 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a conspiracy is the phrase, but it seems maybe that, they should err on the side of caution given these 2 incidents.
Anna, for me, the timing of this was fairly shocking because if you saw in the news, Boeing just got back its ability to sort of self-regulate, to perform final safety inspections on 737 MAX jetliners and certify them for flight. And I don't know, it just seemed like a really eerie coincidence that those 2 things happened in the same week.
I don't know. I feel like weird stuff is constantly happening with Boeing, and I'm not surprised by any of it at this point anymore. That's see fair. Them in their recent weeks have just been an entirely mixed bag of stuff. I mean, you have this incident where this federation is calling the incident unprecedented. That's a terrifying word to hear when you're talking about a commercial aircraft. Yeah. I don't think that inspires any confidence in the world's largest commercial jet maker, who is operating now amidst this government shutdown where you're hearing reports of the people tasked with keeping the flying public safe and secure, like TSA and air traffic control, calling in sick, being threatened with no back pay, working with no paycheck coming in right now. Boeing, meanwhile, as you said, they're getting back on track. The door cap debacle of 2024 that kind of started that whole ball rolling. We were there. I think that was early 24. Now we're back in a place of the regulation shift a little bit. Boeing says that it's ready to start delivering some of those 6,000 backlog planes that they were finishing. And while their refrain tends to be this focus on stability and consistency and getting back to that quality place, I felt like another incident that sort of maybe muddied that messaging was there were some rumblings last week that Boeing is considering or taking the early steps to build a new jet to replace the MAX.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't know if right now they're saying that's not their priority, but then again, it was reported widely that they were in discussions potentially with putting a new engine in, talking to, I believe it was Rolls-Royce about that engine when that's not the engine maker that they've been using for 4 decades.
Okay.
Gets people kind of thinking, well, do they need to replace the MAX so soon after it just hit the market in 2017? So, the situation with the Dreamliner, I think, just speaks very starkly to the fact that Boeing has a lot to deal with still.
Yeah.
I don't know that I was pleased to hear that they were looking back on on development and trying to, I feel like they're not in a place of innovation right now. They're in like a quality control for, I don't know how long, but like when this stuff is routinely happening and they're being asked by a pilots union to ground these planes, which is what they asked for.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about that new plane.
For
I don't.
Inspection.
Yeah.
Well, it is, for me, part of that is encouraging because you have heard so many people say that, it might be possible that like the 737 MAX just isn't the best. And
how is this reassuring then?
Well, that maybe they're taking the steps forward of instead of like putting Band-Aids on an open, like a large open wound.
But it's going to take them
through anyway.
Yeah, like, well, okay, so when this new plane is ready in 2030 and they fly the MAX this entire time, and now they have a Dreamliner problem.
Well,
you feel good about this?
I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't feel good about it. But it seems like they're maybe doing something different than just putting them on backlog and the what were they, like shadow factories and the shadow factories. Just you know what? Just put up a couple shadow factories in India, drive them through, and make sure that everything looks ship-shape. The FAA said specifically that it decided to restore the aerospace company's authorization to issue airworthiness certificates for the MAX and specifically the 787 Dreamliner starting this Monday following, quote, a thorough review of Boeing's ongoing production quality. And I just really hope it was very thorough, and not some sort of like self-reporting. Here you go. Check it out. See, look, everything we did. Stamp it. Thank you. I don't know. Maybe it was more thorough.
I don't know. People are still flying as much as this is like hard to see in the news. Like I just read Delta released their earnings today. They said that they're still doing great, that luxury ticket bookings are higher than they expected. People are still flying. Flights are expensive right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe people are not as freaked out by all the Boeing drama as I am personally, but
luxury seats are flying off the shelf because you can't physically fit in the economy seats. Just like, we're not selling as many. It's like because you made it impossible to sit in. The only other thing that I wanted to say about this story in particular was that how this thing that is not supposed to deploy unless there are 3 very serious problems that happen deployed, and they're just like, no, we looked into it, it's fine. Like I don't know, that's like if I don't know, it's like if your parachute deploys while you're flying a plane or something like that. It's just like that should never happen, and we need to be maybe a little bit more concerned about why it did and try to get to the root cause rather than just like, days later be like, yeah, no, we checked it out. All fine. Good. Put them back in. All right. Well, our most popular story this week was about an EV prototype that exploded and damaged the company's headquarters. Faraday Future experienced an odd incident near the company's Los Angeles headquarters. A prototype started on fire. The EV maker sought to reassure the public by saying the fire was not really a big deal. The automaker issued a press release following the incident, clarifying that all operations at its headquarters were unaffected and that there were no related injuries. They also said that some of the wall surfaces were damaged and that it would continue to work with authorities to determine what happened. An a Faraday Future or FF91 show vehicle is the suspected cause of the fire, an important distinction considering that the company said it was a 9-year-old model. Faraday Future said the vehicle was a beta prototype and likely experienced a loose connection or wiring short circuit in the 12-volt system. They stressed that the vehicle in question is, quote, entirely different from FF91 production vehicles. Also, the interior materials apparently did not meet flammability standards in production vehicles, and so a recall wouldn't be required. While it's not a threat to the public or Faraday's few owners or car owners, the optics are, as they say, bad for the EV maker that is kind of running out of fumes to run on. Anna, given Faraday's many other problems, I suppose it could be fair for the company to say that in the grand scheme of things, like they truly have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, I mean, a recall would be Faraday Future's worst nightmare right now. So the fact that they're avoiding one is the one positive takeaway. but then you have everything else. And not even specific to this story, but, they have a lot of problems as you detailed. But as it pertains to this fire, I wouldn't be happy if I were them. I mean, so obviously it was extinguished rather quickly. It took less than an hour to get the responders there. They put out the fire within 40 minutes, I think, no injuries. The building was damaged severely enough that the Department of Building and Safety had to red tag it. So they said it was basically not safe for people to be in there until they were able to make some structural fixes, right?
Okay.
But keep in mind, this is a satellite building. It's next to the Faraday Future headquarters. So it's not where they mainly operate, but it apparently stores some flammable prototypes. But when you look at where they are, so they're in California. We talked about in 2024 how they were almost evicted from their space because they were not paying their rent. The company actually sold these buildings quite a few years back to generate some quick cash, and they've been leasing them back ever since. So I read this report in TechCrunch that said that John Schilling, who is Faraday Future's communications director, did send TechCrunch an email telling them that he was unsure of the current status of Faraday Future's lease at this facility. TechCrunch added that the property, including the main building and the one where the fire occurred, is being advertised as available for lease by a commercial real estate company. Representatives from that company did not respond to their request for comment, but it is interesting to see that. Makes you kind of think that Faraday Future is perhaps on the ledge right now in terms of their space.
Yeah.
And then to have a fire take place and put part of the building out of commission. They have this really checkered past already with not paying their bills. Could they get actually evicted? Possibly. I mean, that kind of looks like that could happen. And I think that would be a massive setback for them, because how do you start over from there? If you don't have a facility, you're a car maker, that would be truly like a worst case scenario for them. I think they sold like 2 vehicles in Q1. They're like just bleeding cash like crazy. This is really not what they need.
No, I mean, if you're a car maker, you do need a place to make cars. I mean, is that... did they recently update the listing as being a bit of a fixer-upper? Could use some TLC. One thing about this story that kind of sort of was fine with me was that they kind of came out and they're like, yeah, it was a prototype. We obviously decided not to make it. This just further reinforces our choice not to make it. Just like, hey, I mean, look at what a great job we did. The prototype we didn't bring to market burst into flames. You're lucky. But I mean, that's why you have prototypes. That's why, Andy, that's why you have design iterations, right? Like sometimes you make a lemon and you store it in a building and it catches fire and you're like, whoa, I mean, we didn't see
Good
that
thing,
coming.
huh?
Yeah. I mean, make sure even in your prototypes, I guess the takeaway is make sure those loose connections are tidied up before you walk away from it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can look at this and being like, given all their other issues, all of them gesticulating wildly. It's not that big a deal, but you don't have to have a tone that says that your tone should indicate that it is a big deal and you're taking it seriously, like you take yourselves seriously. And that's doesn't really sound like that's what's happening here.
No, their tone was definitely like, yeah, that definitely happened.
Yep. Wasn't the batteries, it was some wiring.
Yeah, no recall, guys, and we actually, it wasn't really our main facility, so that was the other thing that they said, we're still fully operational.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, good.
This lease listing does say move in ready.
Oh, all right. Well, hey.
Just not that part. Over there. Don't look over there.
Already
they
painted
just took that part out.
Well, I mean, isn't part of that was part of the reason it was red tagged because, with a battery fire, all the noxious fumes that come off, probably something had to be done in terms of the air quality.
So they're referring to the, I think the 12-volt system, which is different from their battery.
Okay.
So their point too was this was not a problem with the vehicle's battery.
Yeah.
Its main battery. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
Probably still wasn't good for you though.
I'm sure not.
No. You probably still want to mask up before you go in there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we jump into, in case you missed it, the story's not as popular on our websites, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. We have another word from our new sponsor, our friends at Workday. This week's episode is brought to you by Workday. 96% of manufacturers are increasing AI investments, mostly focusing on improving factory floor operations. The next phase of AI aims to tackle a new set of relevant challenges: ongoing labor shortages, regulatory changes, and economic uncertainty. This new ebook, Rethinking AI in Manufacturing, teaches you how to transform day-to-day processes across your organization with AI to benefit the workforce and stakeholders. There is a link to download the ebook in the live chat. There's also a link to download the ebook in the body copy. All right. In case you missed it, story's not as popular on our websites, but could still make a big impact on the industry going forward. Andy, what do you have for us this week?
We had a bit of a roundup type story, a synopsis, covering an increasingly prevalent building cooling system that people are calling, I guess, ice batteries.
Cool.
I'm in.
Almost,
I like it.
Almost literally.
Yeah.
They call them that because they, in effect, store energy in a way, but it's also kind of a misnomer. So the way I read it is it's almost like turning a building into a cooler you'd tailgate with.
Oh, okay.
So the system freezes water into ice at night when electricity costs are lower, so it costs less to charge the battery, I guess, and then runs water through the thawing ice via pipes that run throughout the building, which absorbs heat, and it pushes cooled air through the vents. Now that lowers energy costs and does not emit greenhouse gases, though I would guess some are required for the power to freeze the ice in the first place. But it can also run alongside conventional AC systems. This article in particular focused on hospitals, where it would be less prone to fires because it's ice than other storage systems, namely battery lithium-ion systems. But this could be used in a wide range of large commercial facilities, and it has the potential to reduce energy costs and ease demand on the grid overall. So something to be aware of for any of our listeners who might be business owners or facility managers or the like with big places.
Well, in data centers, I don't know if
That
you
was
said that,
also mentioned in the article too.
Those run hot.
Yep.
And so basically you're turning this entire building into an air conditioner, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not an engineer, so don't quote me on that.
No, that's fine. I'm pretty sure it checks
Or an
out.
HVAC tech.
I don't know. I'm constantly impressed by anything where people are thinking outside of the box. And I don't know, Anna, to me, freezing the walls seems out of the box to me.
It does.
Yeah.
I thought this was cool, and I don't know what else you would call it but ice batteries.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's catchy and kind of what's happening, so that's fine with me. It just took some explaining, that's all.
So did they explain how or maybe I missed this part, but like,
are you picturing like a giant ice cube?
Yeah, like where's all the
I was
thawing
too, and
taking
I'm not
place?
sure
Like,
what's...
is there not condensation being produced by this process?
I did not. If I read that in the article, I missed it because I'm not getting much of the detail. So there's different companies. There's a bunch of companies doing this, and they all make different systems. So it kind of did a broad interview of how the technology works, but I assume it varies by manufacturer.
Yeah,
where the ice is and how it works. The specifics of it,
we don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can follow up next week.
Yeah. No, I do like this though. I mean, there's so many great alternative energy options, but obviously you're all like coming down to electricity in a lot of cases. So like even if you're producing a ton of solar energy, you're still kind of like, you're still all reliant on that electrical grid.
This is used. The main user of this is California. Now, California is big, but also it has a lot of sunshine in the daytime, but at night it relies more on the grid. So that can alleviate that pressure specifically in that region.
Yeah. So the story starts with Norton Audubon Hospital in Louisville, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And that is crazy. 74,000 gallons of water frozen. And it has 27 tanks of ice to sustain this network of cold water pipes that keep operating rooms at safe temperatures. It's like This is like it's wild to me. I
Yeah.
don't know, and it works.
It's like an old timey icebox. Yeah.
It is, yeah. Like, and next thing Next thing they'll do is just like, but what if we just dug these buildings into the ground, like what are they, like the geothermal homes or whatever? I mean,
You can make a refrigerator that way, really.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. All right. Hey, just like, hey, we're gonna take you to the surgical suite. It's just down two very convenient.
Or just
flights.
run the pipes far enough underground so it gets at least a little cooler down there. So that's you can put the engineers on that one next.
we figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one is truly unique. And, sometimes these wind up in the top 5 because they're just weird enough for everybody to be like, what's going on? But I do get it. It's kind of like when people see salt batteries in the headlines, they're just like, okay, we've seen it. We're going to wait for it to be proven out, and then we'll learn more. So for in case you missed it, and perhaps the last in a line of stories of Jaguar Land Rover coverage, I just wanted to provide a final update on how the company has finally started restarting production, and it's also figured out a way to provide a lifeline to some of those critical suppliers that were, being asked to put their homes on the line just to keep their doors open. So Jaguar Land Rover restarted manufacturing. This company's phased manufacturing restart started this Wednesday as disparate plants and operations came back online. It was good news for everyone. While JLR has been making manual payments to settle outstanding invoices, its automated supplier payment systems are expected to come back online this week as well. Now, JLR has a temporary plan in place that's going to pay and prepay suppliers faster than its standard payment terms, which should help them improve near-term cash flow. The company will start the program with suppliers that are deemed most critical to the production restart and eventually expand to non-production suppliers. I just wanted to provide this as an update because, some people were predicting that, and I mean, it is still possible. Some of those predictions of like being back online in a year, those predictions were to be fully back online and fully secured. That's going to take at least a year is what people were saying, but they were able to get some operations online. It's kind of interesting, some of the things that have been picked and that they were picking and choosing. The other is the sort of announcement that they were basically cutting checks to people to help them keep the lights on while they're trying to dig themselves out from a cyber attack. And also they created, there was a problem. We talked about the havoc it had wreaked throughout the supply chain, and they're just like, all right, we'll prepay you, and we kind of talked about how that was going to be necessary for some of these suppliers when we previously covered that, just to help them stay in business. And it seemed like JLR came out with a lot of solutions this week that people have been waiting for more than a month to hear about, which, I mean, because this was the most good news in the series, I guess I wasn't surprised that everyone read the headline. They're like, good for them. Don't need to know anything else. But they did also, Jaguar Land Rover very carefully issued the news about the restart in the morning, and then in the afternoon issued their sort of highlights on Q2. And it seems like that cyber attack kind of crushed the company. It reported Q2 wholesales were down 24.2% from the same period last year. Retail figures are down nearly 20%. JLR said volumes have obviously been impacted since the start of September because they couldn't do anything. That's when the cyber incident kind of shut down production and hit wholesales particularly hard. The planned wind down of legacy Jaguar models is also hitting the company's bottom line, and we've previously talked about tariffs continuing to hurt sales throughout the quarter. So it was like, what was it? It's like a compliment salad. It was like a news salad or a sandwich, right? Where it's just like, hey, really good news. And we got a little bit of pretty bad news, but we're also going to have some more good news helping people out. And I don't know if you got to see this update, but mostly good news from Jaguar that at least seems to be getting things back online.
Yeah, I think that they're probably hoping to paint the picture that they are turning the page a bit. The thing that stood out most to me is when you were talking about how they went back to a manual payment system, and all I could think about was how challenging that must have been for them. When you think about companies that over the years sort of incrementally are applying digital tools to their processes, it helps them to not have to hire as their volume increases. And that's what a lot of companies are doing. So it's probably way more work to be done than they have people to do, which has got to be a really difficult time period for that accounting department.
Oh, and a lot of that, all of those payments, a lot of them are automated. And I mean, on a much, much, much smaller scale, I was kind of just talking about this, moving into a new, smaller community where they only accept payments via check. And, it's just like, I have written more checks in the last 2 years than I have probably in the last 12 years. Just like, and it is wild that, you're kind of like going back in time, but hey, that's how people do business. And, it's mostly, it's a lot of daycare checks.
Oh, I was going to say, who is taking checks?
Daycare doesn't, it's like a pretty steep penalty if you pay with anything other than check or cash.
I get that.
Yeah. But either way, so I sympathize a little bit. I'm like, man, they're just like, has anyone seen the checkbook? And they're like, haha, funny. They're like, no, really, we need to find it. Andy, what were your thoughts on what's going on at Jaguar?
My concern is because I'm subbing for Jeff, I have to be the cybersecurity guy, and that's not really my bag.
You don't have to do that.
Don't worry about it.
I'll just say it's good and it's important. You should do cybersecurity. I'm sure you guys have talked about this when you've discussed this story before, but the impact on this company notwithstanding, all of its supply chain now has to deal with this too, and it's just shows the ramifications of or just the possibilities of what can happen if depending any large company has this whole supply chain and they're all compromised when this happens. So just another example to be careful out there.
No, we talk about Rivian building the supplier park right next to all its operations, and how like one company that is fully staked in making bumpers or seats or something, like it's this entire ecosystem that kind of comes down, not just the car maker. Anna, what's your In Case You Missed It this week?
I selected a story titled "From Composting to Solar Panels, NFL Stadiums Are Working to Be More Sustainable." I selected this story because the quote that stood out to me right away was the teaser, which was, "You always want to root for a team that's doing good by the environment and the community," which, also that it is in your region. Like you're just, But it's a nice thing. What I thought was interesting about the article, so it detailed several NFL stadiums, including those in Philadelphia, Atlanta, Santa Clara, California, that have made big strides in lowering their carbon footprints. So they're installing solar panels, creating composting and recycling programs. One stadium has a gimmick during the game where if they catch you on the Jumbotron recycling something, they'll give you a signed jersey. It's just nice. Like pretty cool stuff to try. Yeah. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, for example, which is where the Falcons play in Atlanta, they say that about 98% of concession waste is compostable. They also have a fruit and vegetable garden, a rain catchment system. They have 4,000 solar panels. The stadium's vice president of ops said it costs about 10 cents per fan who attend events to run this zero waste program. I thought it was interesting because I think it jives a bit with what we're seeing in manufacturing, where even though sustainability and alternative energies, this was really like a hot topic, 5-10 years ago, of people trying to like get on board with this and make some strides, certainly during the Biden administration. I think under the Trump administration, it's become a bit more polarized and maybe politicized. So you'd think that based on that, it would be backburnered. And certainly some companies are doing that. But we're also seeing in manufacturing a lot of companies saying, no, we're just going ahead with this because we're seeing the value that comes from the marketing side of it. For one, people like that, working or, following the team that's, doing good by the environment or buying from the company that is doing right by the environment. But I think they're also seeing ROI on some of these projects. You look at solar implementations, once you get past that initial implementation cost and the capital expense of that, if you're using a lot of energy and you're in a good spot and you got a big roof. You're really actually, coming out in the positive at some point there. So don't
see a lot of tree cover, some of those big industrial complexes.
You really don't. No. They're really perfect for
pretty ideal to be a solar farm.
So I think we hear less about this stuff right now. because it's not as top of mind. I mean, there's a lot of other things to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's still taking place, and I think a little bit behind the scenes, but I think it's cool to see that it is.
No, and it's very encouraging. Like, talk about low-hanging fruit, the idea of just catching a fan, recycling, and giving them a jersey.
I know.
Like, you got to do that one time a game, and for like $100 expense for the jersey. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you get 40,000, 100,000 fans to recycle. I think that's pretty good cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
I did like the part of the story talking about like stadium staff manually sorting recyclables, the on-site compactor, crushing aluminum cans. Like, it makes me think of like how I was taught and how like you teach your kids about recycling, where it can start with cans and a little can crusher, and how you can make it fun and then also teach at the same time. Just like, I don't know. I think that there were a lot of feel-good components of this story.
Yeah.
And we need to remember that component of these, I guess, ESG goals, rather than just like waste of time, over-regulation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And like, I think outside of just the feel-good part, like some of these stadiums are switching to aluminum cups instead of plastic cups for beer, and the fans like them because they're better at holding the cold in, so your beer stays cold throughout however long it takes you to drink it. And then they're easier to recycle than plastic, and plastic sucks to recycle.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like that is more than lip service, because it's easy to say like, hey, we have put all your Coke bottles in here, throw all your plastic cups in here, and then that stuff ends up in the garbage anyway.
Yeah, this is where we put all the plastic cups that we bag and throw in the garbage.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas this is a little bit more suitable to recycling.
Yeah. Andy, your thoughts on some of the recycling efforts happening at the in the NFL?
Well, one thing I think is that it feels like this stuff is politicized, and I don't think it has to be.
It shouldn't be.
It feels
certainly
like
doesn't have to be. No.
It feels like manufactured outrage that they're trying to foist this on society when society should want to do these things, not because there's winners and losers, because it's positive. It keeps things out of landfills. Like these things should not be controversial, and we don't need to allow people to make them controversial. The other thing is first thing, the picture here is someone pouring from an aluminum can into an aluminum cup.
Okay.
So
seems unnecessary.
all right. But I can't remember, you see the ads for the aluminum reusable / recyclable disposable cups.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I've ever used one. I am curious how they'll hold up in December.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Like
as someone who's had a slushy beverage in about 15 seconds at a football game
in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
So we'll happy to be proven wrong, as with all things.
I've been to those games, and man, my chili froze in an insulated cup.
Yeah.
So there are some situations where it's just like, you're staying sober today, bud.
Yeah. Or just get the tall boy. That's aluminum too.
Yeah, and you got to drink it before you get out there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, it's a really cool story. I told this one completely. I missed entirely, so I was glad that you picked this one this week, Anna. Well, before we get out of here this week, let's do our final thoughts. Andy, what's your final thought this week?
My dad and my sister celebrated a couple of nice round number birthdays this week that I'm sure they'd rather I not specify in detail. So I've told them that individually, and they don't watch this broadcast, but I will just put that out into the internet ether anyway. So happy birthday to them.
Happy birthday.
There you go.
Yeah, and those round numbers, they're not as scary. They're not as scary.
No,
as,
my sister was freaked out, and I was like, "No, you're fine. That was a good one."
Yeah, no,
it's the others that are worse.
Yeah, well, it's like the round numbers are fine because you realize they're harmless, and then you catch like one of those really bad ones in the middle. Mm-hmm. You're like, "Whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened this year?
Yeah.
My goodness!"
Yeah.
My final thought this week is that for the first time that I can remember, we went and had sort of a guys' weekend up north where there were 3 different generations of the guys in our family went up north just to kind of hang out and not do laundry and wash our hands. That's not true. It was actually that would drive me crazy. But of all the things that we did, going on kayak rides and just hanging out and having a good time, taking it easy, we went on a snipe hunt, and I have to say that if you haven't done that or been a part of one, I highly recommend it, especially if you have small children, because it is a great, easy adventure that you can all go on, and it's all in your mind.
We talked about this earlier this week, and I made a mental note to look up what that is.
Yeah.
And then did not. So do you want to explain to me what that is?
Oh, you don't know what a snipe hunt is?
No.
Okay, so this goes back to when I was in sort of like a similar to Cub Scouts back in the day. And you'd go on these camping trips, and you would go on snipe hunts, and you would have they would talk all day about what a snipe was, a tiny creature, just a little critter that ran around as nocturnal at night. So you would get flashlights, burlap sacks, bags for like corn feed, stuff like that. And you'd go looking for them in the woods, like in a trail at night. And you know what? For the many years I was in that group, we never caught one. And it wasn't until I was way later and like way old that I realized that a snipe wasn't real.
Okay.
And so it is, but just so the entire process of setting the stage and kind of my brothers and dad and I like kind of playing off each other as to what a snipe was, and just like it's got a pointy nose that kind of feels like a finger, and it's got really sharp teeth like a northern fish, and it has it's really fast and it lives in trees, and it was just really fun, kind of basically improvising an entire snipe hunt down a trail in the North Woods for hours. And like, it blew the kids' minds. It was just so much fun. Like in that, it costs nothing other than your time and imagination. And it was just a lot of fun, a lot of wholesome fun.
Yeah.
So, burn off those like 40,000 calories per meal we put on, 'cause we were all eating incredibly healthy. So my final thought is, if you haven't done a snipe hunt, do one. It's a great time. Anna, what's your final thought this week?
So for my final thought, I'm bringing some feedback from a listener.
Oh, okay.
Last week we talked about the whiskey heist. If you missed it, $1 million worth of 10-year-old Scotch whiskey, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it was stolen via like a sophisticated fraud scheme where a transport truck showed up and they put it on the truck, and then it wasn't the right truck.
Yeah.
And then it disappeared.
Yeah. You're not the normal guy.
Yeah. I kind of put the group on blast a little bit, and had some concerns about maybe a novice workforce not having the skills to know when something felt off in that situation, or maybe there was some checks and balances that weren't being employed there. So this person wrote in and they said, thank you as always for your great podcast. Regarding the theft of whiskey from the Burlington, Washington warehouse, you guys have done many reports about thefts facilitated by fraudulent shipping documentation. It is not only becoming more common, but thieves are becoming ever more sophisticated. I think it might be a little unfair to think that the whiskey company could have caught on in time to mitigate the damage. The company for which I work was entangled in a fraud of a different kind recently. We discovered that the digital presence of legitimate personnel had been hijacked.
Oh.
So found out too late that all of our research was in vain. My point is that sometimes the gut just simply isn't enough to compensate for the insidiousness of these fraud outfits. They are practiced, subtle, coordinated, and technologically advanced. Maybe that is just me trying to justify my own proven vulnerability, but I still think we could cut these guys a little slack. Really appreciated that note for somebody who's kind of experienced this on their own with their own business. And I thought it was great input. I think Jeff was kind of arguing the same when we talked about it last week on the panel, saying, hey, look, some of this stuff is being replicated to the point where it is really impossible to decipher between what is reality and what is being faked. Fair enough, guys. I've never been in this situation before, but anyway, I appreciated the input.
So the actual employees, their digital presence was being faked?
Yeah, so it sounds like maybe getting a fake email from a person not sending that email, or which is...
Oh, gotcha. Oh, like spoofing somebody? Right?
Yeah.
That's spoofing. Man, just teeing it up for Jeff.
I know.
who is currently
And
fishing.
yet,
Yeah. Would you want to read the same statement to Andy that you had in the previous story? Just like,
just have him email me. I'll read it.
Yeah, hopefully Jeff is not watching right now and
Yeah.
will never watch.
yeah, hopefully.
And then I'll just tell him that somebody wrote in and was like, Jeff is dumb and got it wrong. Yeah.
So, you know, I give Jeff a lot of credit for putting all of this cybersecurity in manufacturing front and center with a lot of his coverage, the Security Breach podcast, and really making sure that we're putting more attention on it kind of company-wide. I was just talking to somebody else in the industry. They hired an IT professional. He was extremely expensive, worked remote. And these were they had RTO or return to office requirements. And he was over budget in terms of what they had for the position. Like in the first 12 days, he found like $1 billion worth of vulnerabilities in their digital footprint. And the person was just like, so I just had him write that down. And in my mind, he printed it out and then slid it across the desk or probably just emailed it to him. And so it continues to blow my mind just in terms of like these vulnerabilities are very real. Some of the protections can be costly, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, I mean, the Jaguar story, they were losing like $67 million a week.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Pretty scary to think
what's
about.
the cost of a few overpriced employees when you're protecting an empire like that?
Yeah.
But thank you very much to the reader who sent that in. But that's an incredible story. All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Just give us that thumbs up on YouTube. It is crazy how the clicking of a thumb can impact your career, but hey, that's where we are. If you want to reach any of us, you can reach us at Jeff, David, Anna, or Andy at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first, and subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine so you can get a notification whenever we go live. All right, for Andy Zoll and Anna Wells, I'm David Manty. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.